Okay, very good afternoon, good evening to all of you. Welcome to this session on unlocking the early stage, leveraging working papers, preprints in your academic research. Okay, today's session is more like an introduction. What is working paper? What is preprints? What is the advantages that you have by publishing in preprints? And some other concerns, and how you can access to these working papers and preprints through our ProQuest resources, such as the ProQuest One Academic, or if you're using ProQuest Central or any ProQuest platform, subject-based ProQuest platform, or even Web of Science platform. Yeah? So this is what we're going to see in next 45 minutes or so. So before I go further, let me give a very brief introduction about myself. So my name is Kurinji Malar. Most of you might be familiar with me if you have attended some of my public webinar sessions in the past. And I've been with the ProQuest, now is Clarivate, about 4 years, but been in this industry for many years, working very closely with many of the academic institutions and government sectors across Southeast Asia. I'm based in Malaysia. Here's my email address. That's a little bit about me. So this session today, like I said, this session is scheduled for about 45 minutes, and it is aimed at librarians, undergraduate students, early career researchers, and academics. Especially, when we talk about working papers or even preprints, some of us are not very familiar. What is it all about? What is the differences between the published scholarly journals? We may not know, especially early stage in your academic journey, undergraduate. So you may have this confusion, or not very sure about what are these actual working papers and the preprints. Okay? So that is why we are having this webinar today. So your audio is set one way. So if you have any question, please use the chat box to post your questions. And I will address your question towards the end of the session or along the way. If I notice, I will address your question. If you're experiencing some technical issues with audios, also let me know via the chat box. And for better experience, if you're using headphones, that would be good. It basically is recommended, but it is not compulsory. And if I might also share some links in between, so just keep an eye on the chat box. So of course, this session is recorded. So whoever have attended this session in full, you will receive the attendance of certificate of attendance after the session. Just give me a few more days, and then we will send to you to your email. And there is also a survey towards the end of the session. Yeah? Okay. So even though it's 45 minutes session, but we have a couple of learning objectives to achieve towards the end of the session. Basically, this will be your key takeaway after the session. So number one is to define what is working papers, what is a preprint paper, the academic context. Yeah, so we need to know what's the difference between these two, what's the difference between the scholarly journals and so on. Right? We want to define what is working. Then we will identify some key resources for finding working papers and preprints. So you can find it through the ProQuest resources, such as the ProQuest Central, ProQuest One Academic, or ProQuest platform, which is subject-based ProQuest platform, and also Web of Science platform. You can find the preprint citation index as well. Then we will also look at to see why is these working papers and preprints are important. What are the advantages that you have? What are the concerns people raise when they are using the preprints content, preprints publications, and so on. So we will see that in next 45 minutes or so. But in this session, if you're one of the user of a preprint publication, or you have published in preprints, if you would like to share some views, some ideas about it, just feel free to do so, because I can unmute your speaker. So if you, towards the end, if you want to share some ideas, some experience with preprint servers, please let me know. I can unmute your speaker manually so that you can share your experiences or share some knowledge in this session. Okay. So we want to define what is working paper and preprint paper. So working papers, they are different than the actual scholarly journals. So most of the time, we will look up for scholarly journals. If you want to do your literature review, or even if you want to look up for find some gaps in the research, you will need journals, peer-reviewed journals to do so. But what is working paper? So working papers are papers, the research papers, they are basically ready, but in the various stage of completion. For working papers, they may not be the final stage, but they are almost ready to be read. So with that, that can be published in the preprint servers or preprints repositories. So basically, the working papers are ready to read, but in the various stage of completion, but definitely has not been peer reviewed or published in journals. So if it hasn't gone through the peer review process. So what about the preprint? So sometimes these terms, they can be used interchangeably. And sometimes even preprint paper, working papers are also referred as preprint. So basically the preprints overlap with working papers, but usually the preprint papers are completed manuscript. Yeah, there's a completed manuscript and their final version. They could have been submitted for publication, but have not been published yet. So, and also has not been peer reviewed. Yeah, it has not been peer reviewed or published in the journal. So in nutshell, to make it simpler, so working papers or preprint papers, they are papers, research papers that has not been peer reviewed, has not been published in journal. Okay, so then you probably say, okay, why that is important, right? Why should we use that when it is not published? Okay. So that is why we will look at what is the advantages of publishing your papers in the preprint repositories. Okay, the preprint repositories, most of them are open access. So from the author's perspective or the researcher's perspective, it is actually shorter time. So if you were to publish your paper, submit your manuscript to the identified publisher, and then it will take a lot more time. You must match the peer reviewer, and then it gets some time to be peer reviewed, and then come back, do revision. And by the time it published, it might get it is a long process. But if you want to share your findings, your findings to the research community, to the wider community immediately, the one quick way is to publish it in the preprint servers or preprint repositories. So shorter time to publish. And usually when you want to publish it in the preprint servers, usually probably less than 5 days. It still goes through some processes, but it is definitely very shorter than being published in the journals. Okay, and the manuscript become a published content immediately, and there's almost no cost to authors. Yeah, so those are some of the advantages when you talk about efficiency and speed. And from the authorship or collaboration purposes point, you can see that the moment is published is publicly time stamped. Yeah, the certification saying, okay, this paper has been published, and it has become a public record because the digital object identifier DOI is being issued. So with that, the papers can be cited by others because there is a digital object identifier. So it gets a recognition of your work while you retain copyright of your work. Okay. Now, from the reader, from the accessibility, it is widely accessed, not only from the academia community, but also accessed from others. If anybody wants to do the policy planning, working on a policy, they can also access to your content. And while it is being exposed to others, you can also receive lots of inputs from your peers, your researchers. You receive more inputs and the feedback from the field so that you can develop and update the manuscript before the peer review processes. So this basically will help users to be more prepared before it goes, going into the peer review process. Even when it goes through the peer review process, you will know how to manage it because you already have some feedbacks from the open field, from the wider community. Okay. Of course, now because you published it already, so it's open access, the accessibility, you will have high visibility. When you have high visibility, it increases the readership. When the readership increases, then there is opportunity to accumulate some citations. Also to look at some other metrics like the huge usage. Some repositories, basically they track on the hits, how many times this particular paper has been accessed, the hits, and how many times this paper has been downloaded, and so on. So this will all give you an advantage when it comes to if you go back to submit for publication, or even for the peer review processes. This will definitely an advantage for the researchers. Okay. So the next slide is what is the advantage to the public? Obviously, because it's being published in open access, so anybody can access it without any cost. They don't have, it's not behind the paywall, so you can access to the content, read the content, and it actually basically expands the coverage to outside the academic community, charity, policymakers, and also the general public. And because you already published your paper, the paper that you have worked for so long, so you basically accelerate the science discovery immediately. In some instances, there's a lot of information needed at that point, especially for emerging topic. So you can have them to build upon others' works as well. And again, we talk about the wider access and potential collaboration, because it is now your content is available across the global, across the wider community. Now you can also attract the potential collaborators to work for, subsequently in your projects, in your other researches as well. Okay, so we will move on to this. Those are the advantages of publishing in preprints. But there are also concerns, if I were to publish in preprints, there are some concerns users or publishers has. These are the very general concern. It has been, it's been a common concerns across most of the researchers, most of the authors across the global. Okay, so there's always this misconception. So if I published it in the working papers or as preprint papers, I may not be able to publish it later. So this is a very common, and it's a valid concern, right? So most journals, basically they publish the papers that has been shared because they also have the best interest to promote the open science access or open access content. But a few journals, there are some few journals apparently also have some restriction due to the anonymous peer review processes. So they want to make sure that this peer review process is happening on anonymously. So they want to make sure that there is no evidence of information about the authors and so on. So because of the publishing policies. So if you want to publish, if you want to submit your papers to journals, always check their publishing policies. So to check that, there is actually a site, Sherpa Romeo database, basically gives you the detail of the policies of most of the journals or the publishers. So just make sure that before you publish in the preprint, if you have intended to publish with the publishers, make sure that you go through a detail with the publishers that it's okay to publish in the preprints, and the journal will still accept your publication after that. Just be careful on that. And there's also a concept. Does that affect the novelty of my paper? Now I have published it. Does that affect when I publish, my paper is published in the publication? So no, that it doesn't affect because of the timestamp that you have established. So number one is when you publish it in preprints, when the publishers, when they look at it, they're basically saying that you are like presenting, the content is being presented in the conferences or at the conferences. In some instances, the publishing in preprints makes it better because when, like I said, you already gathered all the feedbacks, at the same time, if your paper has gained some kind of impact in terms of, if it's not citation, it could be also like a high downloads, high hits, and so on. So it definitely will help you to help you with your publishing process. Okay. No, if someone will take my ideas if I publish it early in the sorry, in the preprint server. So there are two aspects to it. Number one is it's an open access, right? Authors, you still retain your copyright of your paper, even though you published openly in preprints, you still retain your copyright of your own research paper. Number two is the digital object identifier. The moment you have published in preprint, you will have the digital object identifier, DOI. So DOI is a unique identifier. So it's like an kind of like identity. So this is my paper. I've got my DOI for this paper. So with that, whenever that, if it's submitted for publication, of course, the journals have their own processes to go through the plagiarism detection and so on. So whenever they detect its own paper, but if someone else has published your paper with their name, then of course that can be also detected in that process of plagiarism detection. Okay, so there's a lot more information actually from here. The site that I have shared in this presentation, in this slide. So I will be sharing this slide with you. If you want to read more about it, you can read from here. Okay. Okay, the rise of the preprints. Preprints, I think, even though it was in much earlier, there was also preprints available, I think, in 1960s. But the very main preprints was launched. It was the first preprint server, which is the archive server. Basically, they are more towards publishing content such as the physics or first. This is the first archive repository launched in 1991. Subsequently, there are more other repositories like SSRN. Yeah, this is founded to disseminate more research more broadly. And subsequently, there are also we have launched on is academia.edu or ResearchGate and etc. Then we have bioRxiv, preprints, ChemArchive, medRxiv, and many other. Actually, there's a lot more preprint servers are available currently. Later on, we can see some of those in my next slide. But with this, ProQuest, Clarivate basically launched the preprint citation index. They started the development in preprint citation index in 2021, and we have launched the preprint citation index in 2022. So where do you find the preprint citation index for Web of Science? It is part of the collection, apart from the Web of Science core collection. So if you look at other collections, you will also able to access to preprint citation index. Yeah. So later, towards the end, I will show you how to get to the preprint collection in Web of Science platform. Okay, just to show some of the preprint repositories from archive to bioRxiv to edArchive, which edArchive, as you know, is education-focused servers, medArchive, preprint organization, SSR, and so on. This figure, basically, I got it from here in this paper. Paper has been published in zenodo.org. Yeah, so it basically says, okay, there are lots of repositories that is related to specifically to subjects like STEM subject, economics, and even there's repositories for law subject as well, humanities, social sciences. And along with that, there are also more general repositories here that you can see. bioarchive, Research Square Archive, Social Science Research Network, SSRN, and etc. Okay. To access to these repositories, basically you go into their individual database and you can access to some of the preprint collection. But if you want to access it from the ProQuest or Web of Science, that's what I'm going to show you later. During this pandemic, the pandemic basically brought the increased in the attention to preprints repositories. At that point, because there was a lot of research going on, everybody wants to have immediate access to the new information. So it is very fast. So whenever they publish it in the preprint, it's less than 5 days, as compared to the traditional publishing may even take longer. And in 61% of actually there was an increase in there was about 61% increase in number of preprint posted in medRxiv and bioRxiv, that including both COVID-19 and non-COVID-19 preprints. Yeah? So that shows that during the attention for preprints increased during that during the pandemic time. Now I'm going to take you to how to access to working papers from. So if you, how many of you all have access to ProQuest platform and have actually access to working papers from ProQuest platform? If you have done, just say yes in the chat box. If you have not, that's fine, just leave it. If you have used it, the working papers from ProQuest platform, just say yes in the chat box. So if you are using ProQuest platform, ProQuest databases, like, the databases can be one academic database, it can be ProQuest central database, it could be health and medical collection, it could be education collection, any databases. If you are accessing to ProQuest platform and you have good collections of source type, different source type. So basically it's here. So just imagine if you have a key term, let's say if you want to search on infectious disease and you want to search across all this content, right? It's a very straightforward. Just ignore the other boxes. And once you have your results set, on your left frame, you can zoom into a specific source type. So usually the very commonly accessed content would be scholarly journals. But like I always say during the training session, so if you don't find any topics, the emerging topics or emerging subjects, also emerging topics or emerging key terms that you don't find it in scholarly journals, you can also expand your discovery to the working papers. So if you click more here, it will take you list of other sources that is available that is discussing about this infectious disease or any key term that you have keyed in. So in this working paper, you click, there are about 4,000 over working papers. So if you click on it, you should be able to access to the working papers. Another way to access to working papers is to say, no, I don't want to specifically look at the topic, but I want to look at all the working papers that is available through my collection of information through the. So you can go to source type, select working papers, and you are able to access to the list of working papers. So in working papers, you will always, when you click on it, there could be two ways. Yeah? One is through, it is already being indexed, and also you have available in the full text within the ProQuest platform. And sometimes if it is very new, it will be always hyperlinked to the repository. So whenever it is clicked on, whenever you click on it, so what you need to focus is, if you are new, if you cannot differentiate between the scholarly journals and working papers, just focus on this. So every of these working papers, you will see, okay, this is from medRxiv preprint. Okay, let me, medRxiv preprint. This is the digital object identifier, the DOI number. So this is the posted version. So sometimes it might have few versions, right? So just be focus on the version. So if you look at it, this is publication date on June 10. So this is June 10. So this is through the Met Archive. Here is the DOI. So this again, it will reiterate that this is a was not certified by peer review. So you know that these are all this is basically a working paper. So if you want to differentiate, this is a very quick way to differentiate your working papers or preprint papers against your scholarly journals. I pause you for a few seconds. Do you have any questions so far? Any question? Let's move on. Okay. Now accessing the preprint citation index from Web of Science. Okay, so most those who have access, your institution have access to Web of Science. So all that you do is you go to, okay, you go to your Web of Science page. Okay, there's a question. Let me answer this question. No, the working papers and preprint papers, they don't have quartile level as research paper because they are not published paper. They don't go through that evaluation. There is no count on the citation has not been counted on JCR. So you will see that you will not see the quartile level for the working papers or preprint papers. So this is in the very early stage before it goes, before the phase is, I've done my paper, I want to publish it, I want to make sure that it is disseminated to all my users immediately. So that is the purpose of it. But during that time frame where it is being published in preprint and being before it is published in as a journal, there will be always the usage of the content. The usage of the content is the matrix is analyzed, or the matrix is based on the hits. The more it is being accessed, the more it is downloaded. At the same time, if it is cited, it might be also counted, but it is not counted for the JCR journal citation report quartile counting. Yeah. So question, so before they were published online. Okay, so you finish your paper and if you were to publish it in the preprint server, there are some minor evaluation. Yeah, it goes through the examiners to make sure that you are publishing good quality of research paper in terms of it is not like your author's opinion or something like that. It's actually a research paper, research has been done. So very minor details, right, to they go through before it published in the preprint server. But whenever when you submit it to your journals, when you submit to your publishers to publish it in a journal, that's when the thorough the thorough review or the evaluation of your paper goes through. Okay. Very minor. That's why it can be published immediately as long as it says, yes, this is a research paper, this is not just opinion of or notes from the author. As long as it's in the form of research, then they will get published. Yeah, yes, of course. If you are working on your paper, review paper, yes, whether it's a research paper or review paper, if you have planned to publish it, but before you publish it, you want to post it in the preprint, yes, you can, but you have to find the right preprint repositories if you're based on the subject that you're working on. Okay. Okay, let's move on. So in the Web of Science, so if your institution have access to Web of Science, the preprint citation index has been part of the collection. So how to access to that? So if you go into the platform, if you look at the collections of information at the search in web, you will see it could be default to Web of Science core collection. But if you want to access to the preprint collection, so drop down this list. So when you drop down this list, you will have other collections as well. So you will see there is also a preprint citation index, right? So you can access it. But if you want to access the entire database that you have in your collection, so you go to your all database and collection here, you say, I want to include preprint citation index also part of my search. That means you search across all databases, not only in Web of Science core collection. So if you manage to find that, include it, then you can run your search. So in how do you identify the document is a preprint? So it's very easy. You can see in Web of Science, you can see there is actually a label saying this is a preprint content, this is a preprint content, and so on. So if the preprint content has received some citations within the Web of Science collection, you can see it is also stated here. So for this paper, although this is a preprint paper, there was one citing preprint here. Okay. And for authors, as an author, if you have your author profiles ready with your Web of Science, and if you have submitted your documents for the preprint, if you have submitted your papers, your manuscript to the preprint server, and you've got your DOI, then you can also always say, okay, I also have one preprint. So this basically will help to whenever anyone have looking at your profile says, okay, so there's a potential of a preprint to be published, and then if you want to have collaborations and so on, so this is where it will help you to to make yourself more visible among the research community. Okay, so that's one way, using a preprint. Okay. Now with this, you can also track which are the preprints have cited. This is the actual scholarly journals. This is the scholarly journal, published scholarly journals. But in these published scholarly journals, you can still see, is there any preprints that have cited this. Trace the evaluation of ideas through the published. Come to the end of the session. It's a very short session, but I would now want to hear from you. If you have anything that you would like to share, feel free to do so. If you want to share, just say yes in the chat box. Say yes, I want to share. Or if you want to, if you have question, you can post it in the chat panel also. But the best thing, if you have submitted and you plan to submit, or if you're an experienced researchers who have submitted and your paper has been published, that would be nice to share if you have any stories to share. Okay, that's good question. Okay, first thing is you need to know what is your paper about. Okay, the subject of your paper. So like just now we did see there are many different archive repositories. Hold on. So if your paper is related to economics or law, humanities, social sciences, so these are some of the recommended archive. Number two is make sure they are all open access. And when you submit, make sure you have the DOI. I think that is a very important. And of course, before you submit, I'm sure there is some kind of agreement between the repositories and yourself. So make sure you read through all that before you finally submit it. Okay, any others would like to share more? And these papers are always, they keep track on their versions. Yeah. So if we go back to here, to click on any of those, if there is a version, there are two versions, right? It keeps tracks of the version. So if you see here, is the DOI, and here is the versions, okay, the first version and the second version. So if you click on it, it will take you to the repositories, and the repositories will basically say, yes, you are reviewing the current version. Sometimes it actually do say that. Okay, here you go. This paper has been published in the preprint in the preprints.org. Okay, from the ProQuest perspective. So let's see. Hold on a second, yeah. Okay, there's a question on before I show you on ProQuest. There's definitely a version that's been tracked. Yes, it's like this. You already done your research. You have identified the papers that you want to publish with. You already identified that. So meanwhile, once you've submitted, but it hasn't gone through the peer review process yet, but you can publish it in the preprint. Because you okay, this is the part is a bit tricky, but that's where you need to check that the publisher or the journal that you want to publish with, will they accept if you have published it before or not. So based on the readings, based on the research, there are most of the journals or most of the publishers will encourage to have the publishing, the prior publishing in preprints. But apparently there are also some journals who are very particular about the peer review process. They want to do an anonymous peer review process. So they don't want these papers to be published before. So it always be careful only on this part. Whom you want to publish with, make sure the policy, you understand the policy of the publishers that you want to intend to publish before you publish it in the preprint. Okay. Okay, I think there's no question. Let me take you back slide. So just to recap, so we have defined, for those who are not familiar with what is working papers, preprint papers in the academic context, now you know what is a working paper. In a nutshell, the research papers that has not been peer reviewed and been published in repositories, those are working papers and preprint. Number two is you can identify key resources in finding working papers. So where even if you don't use ProQuest platform or Web of Science platform, if you're working on any other databases, so if you see there is a term working papers or preprint papers, then you know those papers has not been peer reviewed. Number three is to understand the advantages of publishing in papers, and also some concerns or some misconceptions when it comes to publishing in preprints in academic research. So these are the three main objectives that we have set earlier, and I hope you have achieved some of these objectives as your key takeaway towards the end of the session. And now, just to share with you some of the papers that you can read. I will share the slide session. So we also address some question. Okay. So here is the feedback form. So you can give me your feedback, and if you have any other topics that you want to be included as part of the learning session for public webinars, please let me know either through my email or in this feedback as well. So with that, thank you so much and have a great day ahead.